Hey, financial freedom seekers, Simon Dixon here. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about getting rich by ignoring the dollars. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to be talking today about a less sexy subject, but it's called benchmarking. And it really is the key to wealth accumulation from my experience, having gone from deep in debt over a decade ago to all I could imagine achieving financially and a whole lot more. And so the way that I achieved that was firstly by ignoring the dollars. So what do I mean by that? Well, in my case, it was actually pounds. So I was living in the UK at the time. And my whole thing was all about, when I was investing or where I was looking at what to do with my finances, I would get debt in each month, and my debt was overwhelming because I was never earning enough in order to meet all my debts. And I was ignoring the dollars in the wrong way at that time. So where I was looking at where I was ignoring the dollars is I was ignoring the amount of debt. So in previous videos, I've talked about the importance of breaking your wealth up into 4 buckets. You have your spending, you have your saving, you have your investing, and you have your contribution. That was covered in my January the 1st video on how to make 2023 the best financial year ever. Feel free to return to that. I'm not gonna focus on that there. But in your spending bucket, that's where you focus on the dollars. You have to ensure, or this translates to whatever currency you are in every country you're in, whatever your expenses are in, that bucket you have to focus on the dollars. And the dollars is spend less than you earn so that you can afford to save and put money into the second bucket. The second bucket, so when I was deep in debt, I was ignoring my debt, which is essentially on a balance sheet, my liabilities, and just focusing on my income. Now that's great. You want to always be maximizing your income in the spending bucket. But at the same time, you need to focus on the dollars or the fiat in order to reduce your expenses so that you've got enough for savings. Now, in the savings bucket, it has to be denominated in hard currency. It can't be. This is where you have to ignore the dollars. So in the case of savings, I use 2 saving vehicles. One is gold, the other is Bitcoin. Now, in the savings bucket, I ignore the dollars completely because it distracts you from the reality and the truth. And the reality is that Bitcoin and gold go through bull markets and bear markets if you're measuring your wealth in dollars. You have to ignore that for the savings bucket, because your savings bucket is about accumulating more of whatever you are accumulating. So in the case of Bitcoin, my savings, I want more Bitcoin each month than I had the previous month. And it doesn't matter if it's a tiny amount. This scales right back down to you having an income where you can only save 10%. And everybody, by the way, if they really had to, and I know this from my time in El Salvador, that if they really had to, when gangsters were knocking on their door saying that their family was going to be killed, they figured out a way of paying their extortion to the gangsters. And so if you are pushed enough, now I know it's easy for me to say this as a white English male born into privilege, and all the things that I'm grateful that I was given in life as a gift. And I know that you may not be able to relate to that for some people, but I genuinely believe that if you come from the place that if you absolutely had to, what would you do? Then most of us, the majority of us, are in a circumstance where that is possible. And that's who I'm speaking to in this video. I'm obviously not talking to those that have zero corruption and there was massive corruption in governments and poverty and various other things. That's another challenge that I wouldn't begin to try and say that I know how to solve. But if you can generate an income, then you have to figure out how to generate, then think in dollars. Anyway, the savings have to be denominated in hard money. The importance of hard money is that it has a fixed supply, or in the case of gold, a 2% ever increasing supply. That's where you have to have more of it than you had in the previous month. Now, what about investing? Well, investing, you have to benchmark relative to what you're saving. So, if you've been watching my previous videos, I have 3 portfolios within my investments. One of my portfolios is based upon the investment theses that the US will continue to be the empire. And so in that one, the bond part of my portfolio, or the income generating part of my portfolio, I want to have more dollars than I had previously. But for the stock part of the portfolio, I'm benchmarking against, do I have more units of that than I had before? So I'm not going too deep into this, but if you, for example, you were investing in the S&P 500 index, then you want to have more of the S&P 500 index that month than you had the previous month. This is how you move yourself from short-term to long-term and stop driving yourself into the bad habits that most people put themselves in. Now, with the investing part of the Bitcoin, so the first portfolio is dollars. I then have a portfolio to prepare for a change in empire, which is the gold part. I need to have more gold than I had the previous month. And then what I spend most of my time in, the area that I'm most passionate, where I think all wealth comes from and came from for me personally, was investing in the exit of the traditional financial system with Bitcoin as the benchmark. And so I need to have more Bitcoin each month than I had the previous month. And if ever I'm not in a position, the dollar value of my Bitcoin might have done awful that year, but I'm not measuring my wealth in dollars, I'm measuring my wealth in Bitcoin, and I'm benchmarking it in that sense. So when I'm investing my Bitcoin, does that investment lead to more Bitcoin rather than does it increase the dollar value? Because if you focus on the dollars, a bull market, everyone looks great, and a bear market, you can leave you to bad habits where you exit the market. So if you want to get wealthy, you have to figure out the benchmark and the goals, and then all you need to do is commit to a much, much longer time frame than most people are committing to. Most people, when they're investing, they're trying to think about how they transform their wealth within a very short period of time. Whether it's a business or whether it's investing, I have seen that the transformation of wealth in a short period of time comes from getting very lucky when you commit to a long period of time. So what I've always said is that most people vastly underestimate the amount of wealth that they can achieve in 10 years and overestimate the amount of wealth that they can achieve in 1 year. I'm not trying to say that it can't happen, but here's what I do know. When I put together my 10-year plan, stuck to it, got the benchmarking right, and forgot about the dollars in the wrong places, I had years where I completely transformed my wealth beyond what I ever imagined was possible, knowing that I wasn't taking excessive risks and it was just going to be blown up the next year through over leverage, over trading, or just getting lucky in 1 year in a bull market and not having long-term intergenerational wealth. When you think about intergenerational wealth, then you can do much, much better in a decade. When you think about a decade, I've seen that you can get those amazing years. So that is how, to use benchmarking. Forget about the dollars, forget about the fiat, unless it's in your spending part. And your spending part is just where you're ensuring that you can put something into your savings. Your savings is ensuring you can put more into your investment. And once you get through that, you'll find that you're in a life like I never imagined was possible, where I'm just sat here contributing, giving on YouTube, giving back because I really enjoy doing it. And you hold me accountable to making sure that I'm more healthy, because I made a commitment that I would give you some content each and every day on building and protecting your wealth, as long as you hold me accountable to checking in each day and focusing on the most important thing other than wealth is obviously our health as well, because we have no wealth if we have no health. My father was a big mentor for me. He passed away last year. And I always remind myself as well that although we were connected around the subject of money because he lost all of his money in the 2020 boom and bust, pump and dump of the stock market boom and bust, and asked me to figure out what happened to his money, which kicked off a 2-decade obsession with the subject. And by obsession, I don't mean just accumulating, I mean getting really, really geeky and understanding the subject. But I always remembered that at the end of the day, it was health that kept us together. And on his deathbed, we cared nothing other about money. We just cared about the love that we shared for each other. So always remember that. If you can get this right, you've got to focus on the benchmarking. You've got to think longer term. You've got to make sure that you're measuring your wealth in the right thing to track your performance. You've got to allocate your buckets. And you've also got to remember that life is also worth living, that if without our health, we don't have any wealth. But that doesn't mean that you don't accumulate the most amount of wealth that you can so that you can get to a bigger and bigger contribution in life. So if you enjoyed this content, always remember you are alive at one of the most interesting and exciting times in financial history. The problem is that most are going to get absolutely wrecked and hurt. Others are going to do incredibly well, and I want to make sure that you are on the right side of that change. So if you enjoyed this content, please do like this video. I'd like to get more views, and YouTube measures how many people like it. Also, let me know and share your experience in the comment section, and share with me what content you would like me to do in my next daily workout, and I'll see if I can put something together while I'm thinking on the workout and try and come to a higher frequency to support you. And as always, if you would like YouTube to notify you each and every day, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell symbol, hit the all, and YouTube will notify you. We're doing this wealth creation with peace, love, and unity, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.